You think the Republican Party is ready to accept a black man as their leader? What do you want to talk about next? You want to talk about the 2024 and the GOP and all that?
I was thinking about talking about 2024 because I don't know if you saw the announcement about Tim Scott, but that was a shocker to me. I didn't expect that.
Really?
No, I didn't expect Tim Scott to run this election, but I mean, maybe I just haven't been paying as much attention to you. But I also didn't expect him to have $22 million on hand for the campaign. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of. What has he been doing for that? That is a lot. $22 million. Starting with that.
He's the only black Republican senator, so he's gonna raise a lot of money. He's there. They push him forward to the front. Like, look, we're not racist. Look, we got Tim Scott here. He loves being a Republican, right, Tim? So he's been pretty high profile. They gave him the George Floyd bill back when that was going on in 2020, and he was the lead negotiator with what's his name, Cory
Bush
Booker.
Or Booker.
Cory Booker, yeah. So him and Cory Booker were the ones who were trying to negotiate the George Floyd Act, but it didn't work out. But he's a pretty high profile guy, believe it or not, Tim Scott. Yeah, I wasn't surprised at all. He was going out to Iowa and stuff. He's been out there putting out feelers.
Man, I haven't been paying too much attention to him. I can't imagine what they're thinking at Ron DeSantis headquarters right now, as rumors are that he's going to be announcing very soon. Rumors are that he is going to throw his hat in the ring. But this announcement, I mean, Ron DeSantis' best odds is being the not Trump candidate. That is his best odds of getting it right now. Trump is dominating him in the polls. Ron DeSantis had some surges earlier, like 3-4 months ago. He was doing 20, some areas 30, but now he's down into the teens. Now he's down back to 18, 19. If it's a good poll, we're talking 20, 21, 22, if it's good for him. Trump in the 50s and 60s. He's fallen. The longer he waits, the more that polling is going to fall. So him announcing now rather than later is smart when it comes to the fact that at least he's announcing, but he should have announced sooner. And now that he's announcing, it's going to be a more crowded field. He could beat Mike Pence, right? I could see that easy.
Yeah.
He can beat Nikki Haley. I could see that easy. Tim Scott's going to give him more trouble. Tim Scott is more of a quote unquote rising star that I think could appeal to a lot of the people that Ron DeSantis is naturally going to attract by just not being Trump.
Well, I would push you a little bit on that. Ron DeSantis wants to be Trump without the baggage. That's how he would describe himself.
That is true. That is true. But a lot of people are going to vote for him because he doesn't have the Trump baggage. But now there's another candidate running who doesn't have Trump baggage, has $22 million to back him, is a prominent rising star. He isn't Mike Pence. He isn't somebody that who's disliked by a decent portion of the Republican base. He's actually quite liked by a decent portion of the Republican base. This really throws a wrench in, I think, Ron DeSantis' odds for becoming president. I really do. If this, I do think Tim Scott running throws a wrench in Ron DeSantis' odds. The more crowded the field, the better it is for Trump.
I see your point about the 22 million, and it's a respectable sum, but it's not unheard of for senators to have 10, 20, 30 million dollars. It's not impossible. But there are other candidates too. Like, you don't think Vivek Ramaswamy, the farmer bro, has any chance. You don't think Nikki Haley. You don't think there's other people looking to get in, possibly Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, Chris
John
Christie,
Bolton,
on and on. Well, he hasn't said anything yet.
Yeah, he hinted. I don't think he's going to run, but I don't think most of them really give a really good run at it. I do think Tim Scott could give a decent enough run at it. Well, or at least a decent enough run to have an impact. Vivek Ramaswamy, I forget how to pronounce his name. His ideas are wacky. He feels just like the conservative Andrew Yang to me. That's what he feels like. He's their Andrew Yang. He's their rising star with not really any political experience to speak of. Time as a congressman, time as a senator, time as a governor. I mean, did he even do any local politics? Was he a state senator? Was he a state delegate? Was he anything?
No, he's a farmer bro, but he wants to raise the age of voting to 25. That's his claim to fame.
He wants to raise the age of voting to 25. He wants to ban all public sector unions. He's like, there's a lot of stuff he's putting out there that's completely wacky that is just not workable in a general election campaign. Stuff that is really going to hurt him. Not to mention, I think completely abandoning the youth vote by advocating for the voting age to be raised, he is nothing more than, I think, as a lightning rod for political discussion. I think that's his main purpose within the Republican Party.
Well, listen, around this time in 2016, the big shot in the GOP was Jeb Bush, and he had $100 million. And then we also had Scott Walker, governor of Wisconsin. These were two huge names around this time in 2016. And Trump came out of nowhere. Trump didn't even get into the race until June. So who knows? Maybe one of these guys that gets in is a dark horse. Here's what I think, kind of. Trump might run into some serious problems in the future here with his criminal cases. Like, Jack Smith is just on his tail, and the walls are closing in. And I know people reacted positively to his first indictment, but when he's got like 4 cases going at once, and it's all about Trump and the crimes he committed and people flipping on him, not wanting to go to jail, I wonder if he kind of implodes a little bit and he gives an opportunity for someone else.
I do think that is the wild card, is how these lawsuits are going to play out. The fact that he was found liable for sexual assault, he can frame it however he wants. Saying that in an attack ad is something that's just going to have an impact, even if you don't care. Even if you don't care if Trump actually did that. Let's say you're just like straight on, they're like, you know what, grab him by the pussy. You love that shit. That's all about you. You're red pill as fuck, right? Even you can see from an outside how that's terrible for your candidate. The attack ads, just in the general, it's not going to look good. And there's no way that Biden or his or anybody working on his campaign isn't going to utilize that stuff against him. And him having active cases while running is just another thing that's going to be undermined. He has so much fucking baggage. That's the thing about Trump. I believe Trump is going to be the nominee. I believe the Republicans are going to nominate Trump. I think he's overwhelmingly popular. I think that the more crowded the field gets, the more it's going to favor him, because that's how he was able to clobber his way to the top last time. It took too long for the anti-Trump coalition to coalesce around somebody. And I think by having Tim Scott, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, all these people out in the field, Vivek Ramaswamy, I don't know how to say his name, it's going to make it it's going to make it extremely difficult for there to be a coalition that unites around one person. That's why I think Tim Scott is so devastating for Ron DeSantis, because he is somebody who I think is the most high-profile person with the most financial backing to set their sights on the presidency, outside of maybe like Mike Pence, who's also generally popular.
You think the Republican Party is ready to accept the black man as their leader?
Whether they're ready to accept the black man as their leader, they might. 10% of them might be. If 10% or 50% or 20% might be, that's enough to screw Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, true. The only thing that people are saying about Tim Scott is he's a nice guy. I kid you not. That is his lane, that he's just a nice guy who people respect.
That's true. He's nicer to Disney than Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any opportunity for someone that's non-MAGA to win. The moderate wing of the party is dead for years to come. They've got a lot of work to do to claw it back. So it's going to be MAGA. What flavor of MAGA do you want? So I just have no hope in
Trump
Tim Scott at all.
always win with MAGA, because that's his movement. And so as long as the Republican Party is dominated by MAGA, Trump is the person who I think is just naturally going to dominate outside factors coming in and stopping him. For example, him getting arrested. Like if he was to get like arrested and put in prison, then, you know, obviously the situation has changed. But if your goal is to win over enough MAGA voters, the only way you're going to be able to do it isn't by beating Trump out on MAGA voters. It's by winning over enough MAGA voters and winning over enough moderates as well, people who are not MAGA. That's how Ron DeSantis has to beat Trump. And Tim Scott undermines that by giving those moderate voters who aren't super on the MAGA train another option.
Well, but what do you think about this? People are saying now that Trump is running for the general already, and that Ron DeSantis and the others are running for the primary. And I give you an example. Ron DeSantis is taking a very firm position on abortion. He passed a 6-week ban in Florida. He's saying, I don't support abortion. I want to see very tight restrictions. Trump is wishy-washy. Trump is like, I'll compromise. I'll see what happens. And I wonder if Trump can be undermined by not taking these hardcore positions, hating on Bud Light, or talking about women or trans women in sports, like all the culture war stuff. He seems to be trying to run for the general and appealing to a wider group of people right now. Might undermine him.
I do think that, oh, and you can see people aiming for that. For example, like the articles coming out about Trump being fine with a trans woman participating in the beauty tournaments. What was it? Miss Universe tournaments. Him saying, yeah, I don't really care. It's fine. That type of stuff is going to be used against him in the primary. And the only time that type of stuff is going to be useful is during the Republican primary. Once it hits the general,
Right.
the independent voters aren't going to give a fuck about bathroom bills. I'm sorry. There's no polling data that seems to indicate that. I don't know if you saw the data from Progress, but it seems that even the majority of Republicans are starting to think it's getting actually too politicized, which is some incredible data from them. So this is only going to be
trans issue.
Yeah, the trans issues, that it's like too much, that people are just like, even the people who are like, I don't know about these trans people, but they're like, I don't know, this is getting a little wild. Like, I mean, now it's everything's like trans people. Every debate's about trans bills. I think that type of stuff will help during the primary. And I do think that there's a few weak spots that Trump has, but everything that Ron DeSantis is going to need to do in order to win enough support is going to need to be in some part beating Trump at his own game. There's no way that he looks stronger on immigration than Donald Trump. It's impossible. It's impossible. He made his brand on that. And there's also no way that he deals in the mud as good as Donald Trump, which is also something that is still a big question mark running over this race. When Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump sit down to debate, Donald Trump is one of the few people in politics that can actually make debates count. Debates usually don't matter that much when it comes to overall polling, definitely in general elections. They usually don't matter. But there's a few politicians that can make debates count. And there's a few moments during these debates that can make debates count. Tulsi Gabbard, during the in her interaction with Kamala Harris, that did have some amount of an impact on Kamala Harris's destiny during the 2020 election. Donald Trump is somebody who made the debates count. When Donald Trump sits down and he debates Ron DeSantis and he calls him a meatball and he talks about, I saw that thing about you touching, interacting with those underage schoolgirls. I think you're a pedophile. When he starts saying that shit on the debate stage, is the Republican audience going to react to how he talked, like how he talked during the CNN town hall? They're going to be laughing and hollering and clapping, and they're going to laugh Ron DeSantis off the stage, and he's going to have like a Marco Rubio moment where he just looks like a robot. I mean, he's not extreme. Ron DeSantis is not that charismatic. He's more of a demagogue than somebody who oozes natural charisma like Trump does.
Yeah, the last defense of Ron DeSantis I'll give is that he's got $100 million war chest, and he hasn't even started trying to
that is
put out an image.
What is Trump's war chest?
He hasn't
right
even
now?
hired anyone. Like, he doesn't have a team around him. It's him and his wife. And it's like, once he gets a big team around him, I think they start selling that to the nation. And I'm wondering, I think those poll numbers are going to get much tighter very quickly.
What is Trump's war chest?
I don't know what Trump has. I don't know.
It's a curious question. I will say that having a lot of money is cool, but if you start too late to start to hire people to work as state directors, to work as, national campaign staff, a lot of times other campaigns can get a lot of the better options. The people that are veterans in your field know what they're doing, and it takes time to set this stuff up. I've only worked on one presidential campaign before, and setting up staff and organizing staff is actually extremely difficult, and it takes a lot of time. And so Ron DeSantis has never ran a campaign outside of Florida before. He's never done anything like this on the national level. I don't know if he has the skill to do that. And so that's also another question mark around this, where we didn't know that about Trump, and then we learned he did. He did have enough skill. A lot of it wasn't even due to hiring the right people. It was just Trump in and of himself, like plowing himself through. Now, a lot of the more experienced political operators are with Trump from the get-go. Not like last time where he didn't have a lot of the experienced political operators. So that's also a dynamic that changes from 2016 when Trump first announced he was running for president.
Yeah, and DeSantis only has one endorsement from the Florida House delegation out of the 20, and Trump has 11. So, that's not a great sign for DeSantis moving forward. As far as why he got in so late, there actually was a law in Florida that he couldn't run for president. He had to have the legislature change that. But my understanding is he wanted all these wins to run on too, like the 6-week ban on abortion and raising the don't say gay to 12th grade, on and on.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I mean, was that worth it? Couldn't he have done it and said he had these victories on the campaign trail with these staff hired, doing the jobs that they're doing? I understand wanting to start with a bang, start with that type of momentum. But I guess time will tell on whether that was a safe bet for him, because earlier, like a few months ago, his polling was a lot better. His polling was a lot better. And in these moments of momentum, these waves you ride, those waves can change very quickly, man. The world forgets about you like that, man.
Yeah, that's why people saying he should wait to run for 2028. I'm like, he's going to be a nobody in 2028. But he was riding the high of the midterms. He had one of the very few success stories in the midterms for the Republicans.
That is one of his strongest narratives, is he can point to the midterms. And Trump, he can't point to the midterms. Midterms are terrible for MAGA candidates. Doug Mastriano, all of them across the board. And a lot of them were candidates he specifically went out and picked over more electable candidates. For example, like Doc Hollywood, Dr. Oz, who lost to John Fetterman, who, as much as I like Fetterman, had a stroke mid-campaign, still beat him by like 8 points.
He's a vegetable. Yeah.
I wouldn't call him a vegetable. Damn, man. IRI's edgy today. Edgy IRI.
I like to joke. I joke. Come on. He got criticized for wearing shorts to the Senate. You can't wear them on the Senate floor, but at a press conference, he was wearing shorts and everybody else had suits on. And,
I love it,
and
man.
He got criticized.
I love it.